What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Best You podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be continuing my conversation with sleep expert Devin Burke in part 2 of our 2-part series. We're diving into today the specific tips and strategies that you can use to improve your sleep starting tonight. You'll learn how to use sunrises and sunsets to regulate your sleep. You'll learn how melatonin, magnesium, and vitamin D can boost your sleep quality, and the best nighttime routine to help you wind down. We'll also cover things like how temperature, caffeine, and alcohol impact our sleep and what you can do to make small changes that lead to big improvements in how well that you guys sleep. If you haven't listened to last week's episode yet on the science of sleep, make sure you go back because that will help you really even further understand why all these strategies and tips apply. By the end of this episode, you're going to have tools to optimize your sleep and you'll wake up feeling refreshed and energized every single day. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that follow button if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe. All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited to have back on Devin Burke to break down part 2 on how we can actually start implementing strategies to get better sleep. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, we talked about the science of sleep, the architecture of sleep, and everything like that. So make sure you go back and listen to part 1 if you have not yet already. But today, I know you guys are going to be really jacked up to learn about strategies. Like, okay, Devin, tell me what I can do to fall asleep faster so I can stay asleep and get more rejuvenating and healthy quality sleep. So let's attack maybe one thing at a time. So the circadian rhythm, we talked about that in part 1, about how the circadian rhythm is our body clock and it's kind of dictated by light. Tell us about, from a circadian rhythm standpoint, what are some tips and strategies that we can do so that our circadian rhythm is actually fine-tuned, for lack of better terms?
Yeah. First thing is getting some sunlight first thing in the morning. Like, so important to get sunlight first thing in the morning if you can. So if you can't for whatever reason, because you have to get up early and you have like a job, and you can get a light box. They make actually things that mimic the frequency of the sun that would be healthy to help your circadian clock stay synced. But if you can, ideally get outside, go put your feet on the ground and watch the sun come up. Like, that's an incredible strategy to help just your body remember and connect to its natural rhythm. Same thing with at the end of the day, if you can watch the sun set, it's phenomenal for your circadian clock. It really is. The sun, like getting reconnected to the sun rising and the sun setting, for thousands of years, that's what we did. And then, living in houses with artificial light, all that changed. So if you just do that simple practice, it'll make a massive difference in your circadian health.
Is there any particular amount of time that you should have morning sunlight, or particular amount of time you should be outside when the sun is setting?
I think honestly, any amount of time is going to be better, but more time would be beneficial. I don't know if there's hey, you have to be outside for at least 15 minutes. But I would say, any amount of time is better than none. More is probably better. And that probably there is probably a cap to that. I just don't know if there's any studies to support, hey, you need to be outside for 30 minutes or whatever.
Right. Of course. Obviously, I'm sure some studies have played along with that, but honestly, just thinking about it from a primal standpoint, like you said, for thousands and thousands of years, we woke up to the sunlight. And it wasn't like we were thinking when we woke up in the sunlight, like, oh my gosh, I got to now get in the shade because I've been out here for longer than 20 minutes or whatnot. So I like that. And you mentioned grounding in part 1, and I think that's a really important thing to think about as well. If you can get out morning sunlight, get your feet to the earth to get the magnetism from the earth, I think that's really important as well to keep that circadian rhythm on the right clock, if you will.
For sure. And most people are totally disconnected from that because wearing shoes, most people don't like to wear be barefoot. And so, yeah, and concrete, and there's so much concrete everywhere. And so, yeah, if you can get your feet on the ground, I mean, it's an amazing, amazing thing to do. And so if you can go outside, walk barefoot on your lawn, literally for 10 minutes, and then that's how part of your morning routine, that would be so supportive of your circadian clock.
You mentioned, watching the sunset. how important is it to, when you're doing like a nighttime routine or a wind down routine, how important is it to be, dimming your lights or turning off your lights before you actually go to sleep?
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendously important and very helpful for people. So if you do like an indoor sun, you can do an indoor sunset where you turn off half your lights as the sun starts to set, or you could get a pair of, blue light blocking glasses. A lot of times this, you want to make sure you invest in like a really high quality pair because a lot of the glasses out there, they don't actually block the right frequency, which is kind of interesting.
Is there a particular brand that you like and have?
I do. So they're Viva Rays. It's actually the ones that I'm wearing. They're pretty cool in that they have different lenses for different times of the day. So these are their daytime lenses. And the only reason I'm wearing it is because I'm getting blasted by a bunch of LEDs and lights behind the computer. But if you're outside, you don't want to be wearing these. But then as the sun,
VIVA.
yeah, Viva Rays. Actually, let me see. I'm gonna grab. So what's cool about these, and this is actually I became friends with Rudy. He's really intelligent guy when it comes to circadian biology and light. And so he designed these so that as the sun starts to set, you put on this blocks out a certain frequency of light that kind of starts to trigger the body. Like this is like a sunset, right?
For those guys who are just listening, he just put like an extra kind of like shade of glasses on his actual glasses. Whoa, that's awesome. And then another one.
And these are what you'd wear. So this, like everything is complete. Like this is completely blue blocking. So it's kind of like different stages of blue blocking with different frequencies.
And it just sticks on on the actual glasses that you wear.
Yeah. A great product. Honestly, I've tested and been sent so many different products over the years. And before I even became friends with Rudy, like when I purchased his product and where I was like, wow, it made a difference in just how my eyes felt. And I just felt better. So, and then I looked into the science of what, how deep he went into creating these with the technology. And I was like, wow, this is very impressive. So quality, quality of products is so important. There's a lot of people marketing a lot of different things out there that really don't work. If you get blue light blocking glasses on Amazon, they're probably not blocking out the right frequency of blue light.
So basically doing a kind of like mimicking maybe your own indoor sunset, if you will, is the primary reason why we shouldn't be looking at screens and getting that blue light close to bed, because it disrupts your circadian rhythm. I mean, I'm sure, like, I always feel like it also probably adds to people's anxiety or like their mind racing right before they go to bed as well.
Yeah, that's actually the bigger part of it, I would say. Like for sure, the LED lights and the blue light absolutely affect our physiology. They don't allow melatonin to be fully turned on, that melatonin faucet to be fully turned on. But I think the impact is even greater because of the nature of what people are watching or consuming on social media, on the news, on TV, through these shows people watch. That really activates a lot of adrenaline or cortisol, or it just creates, it's stressful. A lot of these things, we're comparing ourselves to everyone else on social media, which leads to feelings of like inadequacy. It creates a lot of emotional triggers, and I feel like those are more of the thing that really ends up impacting people's ability to fall and stay asleep.
Yeah, for sure. And then if we have emotional triggers and we're not getting enough REM sleep, then the emotional triggers don't get resolved and everything like that. You mentioned how you're not necessarily a fan of melatonin supplementation. Maybe if you're crossing time zones, it might be able to help. Are there any particular supplements? I feel like I hear people talk maybe vitamin D, maybe magnesium. Are there any particular supplements that maybe you are a fan of, and if so, like what are the mechanisms through which those actually work?
Yeah, so I am definitely a fan of magnesium for sure. And magnesium is not only good for sleep, but there's thousands and thousands of enzymatic activities that magnesium plays a role in just in the body. And most of us are deficient in magnesium because it's deficient in our food and our soil. So you can, it's always good, I think, to get a blood test or to see, hey, am I deficient in vitamin D or am I deficient in magnesium? Most people are deficient in vitamin D, most people, which is a hormone, and most people are also deficient in magnesium. Magnesium helps the body relax, helps the muscles relax. it's great. It increases sleep quality. The challenge with supplementing magnesium is that it's a bit hard for the body to break down magnesium because generally speaking, magnesium, the size of magnesium is too big for the body to actually break down and utilize. But now there's certain companies that have created technology to make it more bioavailable, either through liposomal technology or through nanotechnology. So now the supplementation industry has sort of advanced itself in being able to make that easier. But spraying magnesium on your body is a great way of getting magnesium into the body. So dermally, unless you're supplementing with a nano magnesium or a liposomal magnesium, spraying magnesium on your body is usually the best way of actually getting it in the body.
Wow, I've never heard of that. So there's magnesium spray.
Yeah.
Is there a particular like kind that you would have to get? Like I feel like there's different like kinds of magnesium, like magnesium glycinate, threonate that people actually are looking into. Does there a particular kind of spray?
Yeah, no. So actually, it's funny enough. I interviewed someone on magnesium, and he told me a lot of as far as like the different types of magnesium, it's really just like marketing.
Mm.
And you really, your body just as long as your body's able to absorb magnesium, it'll know what to do with that magnesium. And this guy his background is in not biochemistry, maybe it was I think it was biochemistry. Really sharp guy, and it was one of the people that created the technology to make magnesium more bioavailable through making the particle size smaller.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so there isn't necessarily a specific type that you need to spray on, but the brand that I like is called Ease, because some of the brands you spray magnesium on, it kind of gets itchy. And this particular company, I have no affiliation with, but they make a product that you spray on and it's not as itchy.
Mm. Is there any downside to supplementing with magnesium?
I mean, just like anything, if you don't really need it,
Yeah.
but most of us, we're not in that bucket of not needing it. So,
Right.
but I think it's always better to test than to guess.
Yeah. And then I guess, for example, another thing that people could be doing is just looking up what high magnesium or magnesium rich foods are and be ensuring that you're getting a lot of those things, like leafy greens, I know is a good source of magnesium. So ensuring that you're eating healthily and everything like that.
For sure. I mean, to be honest, Nick, even if you're eating like all organic whole foods, you're probably still deficient in magnesium just because it's not in our soil. It's not in our soil.
Yeah.
But obviously it's always better to get your vitamins and minerals from food versus a supplement, my opinion.
Let's go into the food. We talked about in part one how if you eat too close to bedtime, that can potentially disrupt, in particular, maybe your deep sleep because your body is working on digesting the food that you just ingested rather than actually in getting into deep sleep. What does the science say about how early before bedtime we should be looking to stop eating?
Yeah, generally about 3 hours. For some people, it's more. For some people, we can get away with a little bit less. But again, that kind of goes back to how fast of a metabolizer are you?
Mm.
And also what types of food are you eating? Because different food is going to metabolize at different rates, as I'm sure you're aware. So it's like if I'm eating a steak, it's going to take a little bit more to break that down than if I'm eating some carbs or something like that are a little quicker to break down. But generally, if you can have like a 3-hour fasting window from your last meal to when you go to sleep, that's ideal. For most people, that might not be realistic. So you just do the best you can, do the best you can.
Gotcha. And so is the main reason for that because it will disrupt your deep sleep because your body is working on digesting rather than resting during that time?
Yeah. And I've been tracking my sleep and measuring my sleep for about 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. And I've absolutely noticed on the nights where I eat a little bit later, it absolutely affects my deep sleep. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that, we've helped thousands of people all across the United States at this point at Sleep Science Academy. And I've seen that in the data as well, like seeing clients that have, deficiency in specifically deep sleep. And then we start talking about, well, what time do you normally eat? And they're, I eat 9 o'clock. What time do you go to bed? Well, I go to bed at, 10 o'clock. It's like, So yeah, these little habits make a huge difference. It can be hard to change, and I think it's really important also to measure. If you want to improve something, you got to measure it.
Yeah.
And now we have great devices and trackers and things that we can actually start to see, hey, I ate a little bit earlier and that made a big difference in my deep sleep. And it's, you get a little bit more motivation to continue that behavior.
Awesome. Talk to me about the role that temperature plays with regards to falling asleep and staying asleep. I've heard you want to set your thermostat maybe somewhere around 65 to 68 degrees for ideal low temperatures. And then I've also heard that maybe taking a hot bath or a hot shower before going into bed will help get your internal body temperature, basically raise your internal body temperature to fall asleep. Do I have that right?
No, it's
Or
the
the other
opposite.
way.
So
Opposite,
it is
opposite.
confusing though, because if you take a hot shower or hot bath, you think you're warming up your body. But what
You're
happens is
cooling.
when you get out, your core body temperature drops.
Right.
So because what happens is all the blood rushes to your extremities, your feet and your hands and the top of your head. And so when that happens, your core body temperature actually drops. And that's what you need your core body temperature you want. In order for sleep to happen, it needs to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit in order for sleep to happen. So our body temperature naturally drops to induce sleep. And like the circadian rhythm, our body temperature fluctuates all throughout the day as well. And that correlates to different hormones and different things within the body. But generally speaking, having a cooler environment, like you mentioned, there are studies that kind of show the ideal time or ideal temperature is around 65 to 68 degrees, give or take. So cooler is better. And I've also noticed in my own experimentation and working with thousands of people over the last 7 years, that temperature, having a cooler room does make a difference for quality of sleep. It does. And now there's amazing devices too, like the Sleep 8 bed, which is a cool mattress cover that kind of can help drop your body temperature by cooling. There's a lot of different things that you can do to support the dropping of temperature. One is the ambient temperature. You could also get bedding that is breathable, that doesn't hold heat. A lot of people don't realize your mattress, like foam, holds heat. So it doesn't allow your body temperature to fluctuate as well as it would if you were on like a latex mattress, for instance, that's more, or a mattress that has a, springs or something else in it that's not just foam. So there's all these little things to think about when it comes to body temperature and optimizing it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I'm sure in coaching all the people that you coach with regards to getting better sleep, a lot of people have the issue of my mind is racing, or I'm stressed out because I'm thinking about what I have to do tomorrow, or I'm thinking about what's going on at work, or I'm thinking about my kids. What are some of the strategies that you found most effective for people to quiet their minds so that they can fall asleep more easily?
Yeah, that is literally the biggest thing that people struggle with when they're trying to improve their sleep, or they have insomnia, right? So, there's strategies that I can share in the moment, but I want to go before the moment, because really, if you're struggling to fall asleep because your mind's racing and you're thinking about a bunch of things, you need to address it before the bed. Most people go throughout their day, they go from the one thing to the next thing, the next thing. There's no mental rest. Mental rest leads to sleep. Rest in general leads to sleep. And we have a massive rest deficiency in our culture and in our society. And one of the ways that you can start to rest is actually take little breaks between your transitions. So let's say you're going from work to pick up your kids. Like that's a transition. Let's say you're going from one meeting to another meeting. There's a transition. So you want to make sure that you slow down, you kind of connect to your body, you create some space. You're not like jumping on your phone, answering emails or text messages. There's just a little bit of space throughout your day. So it allows that mental rest to happen so that there's not so much buildup at the end of the night or at the end of the day that leads to struggling through the night.
Yeah, I love it. Any other before the moment tips? I mean, that's great. Taking those little breaks in between, making sure that you actually have mental rest and physical rest throughout the day. Any other things like that?
Yeah. So in the moment, if you have a racing mind, get out of bed. Don't stay in bed with a racing mind, and write out your thoughts, because our hands move a lot slower than our brains. And so if we are writing out the things that are on our minds, that's going to be super helpful to begin to slow our minds down to then be able to allow sleep to happen.
All right, the next topic everybody is going to love: caffeine and alcohol. We already talked about kind of how caffeine impacts sleep from the buildup of adenosine. It blocks the adenosine receptor, so we don't necessarily feel that sleep pressure. And you said it has a half-life of 6 hours, so oftentimes, especially if people are slow metabolizers of alcohol, that caffeine might be blocking sleep pressure for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours for some people, impacting their ability to fall asleep. So what is your real quick take for most people when they should have their last sip of caffeine, if you will?
Yeah, so with caffeine, you want to wait an hour before you have your first caffeine beverage. And the reason for that is because caffeine, our cortisol is highest in the morning. Caffeine is like jumping gasoline on already hot fire. So you're going to have elevated cortisol throughout the day if you don't wait an hour. So first thing you do is hydrate. You don't want to have caffeine really later than noon, but it just depends. Again, if you're a fast metabolizer, then you might be able to get away with a little bit later. For most people, though, noon is generally the cutoff, or earlier. Like, like that afternoon cup of coffee or espresso at like 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock when the energy's starting to dip after lunch is not ideal for sleep.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that I'm personally not guilty of that sometimes, but I luckily think I'm pretty. Luckily, I think I'm a pretty fast metabolizer of caffeine, so sometimes I use that excuse. But let's transition to the alcohol. And I know it's a conversation that could last a whole lot longer than just a few minutes. But I guess start off by telling us really why or how alcohol negatively impacts our sleep. So how alcohol negatively impacts our sleep.
Yeah, so first it's a diuretic, so it dehydrates you. And so most people are pretty dehydrated at begin with. So that's not ideal. It also affects your body temperature, so it can heat the body up. And again, we want the body to be cool throughout the night. Which it's just not ideal. So specifically, alcohol gets in the deeper, when we consume alcohol, it blocks our ability to get into the deeper stages of delta sleep and REM sleep. And those are important stages of sleep. So usually people wake up and you either have like a dry mouth, or you have to use the restroom, or you wake up and you're not really sure why. And for sure, alcohol, if you're drinking alcohol, that's part of it.
Yeah. Why does alcohol seem to wake us up in the middle of the night, even if we don't remember waking up in the middle of the night? Like, I've been tracking my sleep for a decent amount of time now, and there's some of these are probably pretty accurate. Some of them probably have some flaws to them or whatnot, but I can definitely tell on mine that anytime I drink alcohol, it definitely impacts my sleep, and so much of it is like I'll wake up in the middle of the night but not even commit that to memory. So how does that happen?
Yeah, it has to do with the body temperature being disrupted. So again, it heats the body up. And so it's anything like your body temperature throughout the night, through the different cycles and stages of sleep, it's going to rise and it's going to fall, and it's going to rise and it's going to fall. And any type of disruption of that rising and falling, and alcohol is a disruption of that rising and falling, is going to potentially pull you out of sleep or not allow you to get into the deeper stages of sleep.
I feel like we've covered a decent amount of the kind of some steps and strategies. What are some of the biggest, maybe what are some of the things that I haven't touched on yet that are some good strategies, good tips that you either implement with clients or that you kind of learn are maybe issues with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest mistakes I think people that are struggling specifically with sleep is they spend too much time in bed. So if you're not sleeping, like let's say you have a hard time falling asleep, if after about 20 minutes you're not falling asleep, you actually want to get yourself out of your bed. You don't want to anchor your bed with racing mind, stress, anxiety, or trying to sleep. Because sleep's something that happens. Anything you do to try to control your sleep or force your sleep actually will get in the way of sleep happening. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're lying in bed and you're kind of tossing and turning, you don't want to just stay there. You want to actually remove yourself from the bedroom, go to a place and have a plan, do something relaxing, maybe meditate or stretch or read. And then once you get sleepy again, then get back in bed and allow sleep to happen. So that's a huge mistake a lot of people make. is they spend too much time in bed, not asleep.
Mm.
So anchoring your bed with sleep versus wakefulness or stress or anxiety or just being awake is definitely one of the things. Sometimes people do like work in bed, or they answer emails in bed, or they eat in bed. Like any of that is not conducive to a good night's sleep. There's two things that should happen in bed: making love to your bed partner and sleep. That is it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other mistakes people make is they try to sleep. They try to force sleep or control sleep and do things, especially in bed. Like, hey, I'm gonna like, that's not how sleep works. Like, you can't force it. You can do things to set up, you can do things so that sleep comes easier and more natural. But anything you're doing to try to sleep is actually going to get in the way of sleep happening.
That's good. That's good. Well, there's a couple other questions I want to ask you. What does your nighttime or wind down routine look like to help generate sleep?
Yeah, I love, so I make a cup of tea. I usually drink like some kind of bedtime tea. Like last night I had Tulsi sleep tea.
And what is that for?
It's so there's certain herbs that can help with, like, adaptogenic herbs that can help with sleep. Chamomile has been known to help with sleep and relaxation. So I'll usually have some type of herbal sleep tea, and it just is kind of comforting. It's sort of, and the herb, I like the taste of it. And I either do two things. I either read a book, or sometimes I'll watch a show with my wife. So she's a big show person. I'm not so much, but sometimes that's, the time that we get to spend together. So, but the content of the show, I'll never watch something that's like aggressive or is like something that's going to stimulate me, or even read a book that's going to stimulate me. So like the content of what you're doing what you're consuming makes a big difference. Like I won't read business books at night, right? I'll read something maybe more spiritual or something more relaxing or something that's actually like pretty boring. To them, it just makes that's my routine. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Is there anything to like drinking a hot beverage? Does that help cool your internal body temperature down at all?
Honestly, I don't even know. I don't know. I just like, that's just part of my routine. I don't know. I drink tea in the morning. I drink tea at night. Herbal tea.
Yeah. Cool. The snooze button. A lot of people will wake up, hit snooze, go back to sleep for another 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and maybe they do that multiple times in the morning. Is getting that extra little bit of sleep beneficial, or is it actually detrimental?
Really good question. It's not great for your circadian clock. Like ideally, you wake up and you get out of bed. If you wake up and you hit the snooze button once and you don't go back to sleep, you're just kind of in bed, like relaxing, that's a little bit different. But ideally, you want to wake up around the same time, and you don't want to kind of wake up and then snooze back. You want to wake up and be up. Now, if you hit snooze and again, you rest in bed for a little bit before you get out, fine, totally cool. But ideally, you want to actually just wake up.
Gotcha. So main thing is doing that might be disruptive to your circadian rhythm. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, this has been an absolute masterclass. This has been so good, and I hope people don't try to implement every single thing that we just mentioned here today. All of these are their own individual tools and individual strategies that are more applicable to some people than others, given your lifestyle and whatnot. So apply the few things that you feel like are doable for you and practical for you, and see what works or does not work. But this has been an absolute blast today, and I feel like everybody has gotten so much information. Again, make sure you go follow Devin at Sleep Science Academy, and you can go to their website at sleepscienceacademy.com. They coach hundreds of people to improve their sleep, and I know a lot of you guys are out there struggling to get better sleep, so make sure you check that out. You can follow him personally at Devin Burke Wellness as well. But any other good place that people should go learn more about you and support you?
YouTube. I put a lot of free content on YouTube. So at Devin Burke Wellness and at Sleep Science Academy on YouTube, go in a lot of different details about a lot of the things we talked about and a lot more as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just a total of an hour talking together wasn't enough to dive deep into a lot of the different things. So that's great. And I appreciate, as you mentioned, the simplicity with which you discuss the science of sleep and the art of sleep and the strategies for sleep, because I know a lot of people are out there, like you said, are just looking to get some better sleep because they want to feel better throughout their day. And I really like what you said. What you do throughout your day impacts how your night goes, and how your night goes impacts how your day goes. And you want to get on the positive cycle of that rather than the downward spiral.
100%. Yeah, and don't overcomplicate it. I mean, I think it's important for people to understand, like, any small change is going to be an improvement. So anything that kind of stood out to you, just experiment with it and see how it makes a difference in your sleep, and see how that makes a difference in how you feel the next day. And hopefully that'll motivate you to continue to put in place some of the habits and the strategies that we talked about today.
Awesome, Devin. Well, I know a lot of people learned a lot. Make sure you guys go listen to part 1 if you have not yet already, and share this episode out, part 2, with somebody that you know might be struggling with sleep, because I guarantee you it's come up in conversation with friends or family members that they're struggling with sleep. Send this to them so they can know some strategies and tips, and they can learn a little bit more about it. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the page. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. Again, share this episode. Devin dropped some knowledge bombs on us today. It was absolutely phenomenal. So, Devin, that's all we got. Really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate you.
What an insightful episode. I mean, Devin shared some powerful tips and strategies for improving your sleep. And the main piece of value from today's conversation was understanding how small changes in your daily routine, from sunlight exposure to supplements and bedtime habits, can make a huge difference in your sleep quality over time. Before we wrap up today, don't forget to hit the follow button on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below, because you guys don't want to miss any notifications about the future episodes that we have coming out that are absolutely jam-packed with value that will allow you to finish your 2024 looking and feeling your best. Here are my 3 biggest takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, natural light's impact on sleep. You can get morning sunlight, and you can watch the sunset by using those 2 powerful tools to help normalize your circadian rhythm. If you're like me and you don't watch the sunset each night, you can make an indoor sunset and turn your lights down as you approach bedtime. That can just be dimming your lights a little bit, maybe 30 minutes to an hour before your bedtime, or maybe just completely turning off all lights 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime, and ensuring that you're not looking at your phone real close to bed as well. That can help to disrupt your circadian rhythm. Number 2, key supplements. Melatonin isn't as powerful as most people think, as it doesn't do anything directly to help you fall asleep. However, I know anecdotally the placebo effect might be enough to make an impact. But something like magnesium can help to calm you down and relax you if you're using the right kind of magnesium that is able to be absorbed. And then 3, quiet your mind during the day by giving yourself small breaks. I personally like going on at least 1 walk a day, if not more, and I also like giving myself breaks for each meal. Not eating through the workday, but actually stepping away from work for at least 15, 20, 30, or 45 minutes can have a huge impact on quieting your mind. Don't have the attitude that I'll sleep when I die. Begin to prioritize it now. It's not easy to change these kinds of habits that will improve your sleep, but it will be worth it. I know some of these habits seem simple, and so sometimes we think if it's simple, it's not going to work. But if you do these simple consistently over time, I promise you it will work and it will be worth it. If you get better sleep, you will undoubtedly continue to get closer to the healthiest version of yourself, and ultimately you'll continue to get closer and closer to your best you.